Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're doing a deep dive, peeling back the layers of Anastasia's incredibly gripping text. We're going to look exactly at how she masterfully engineers psychological tension and fear. Seriously, if you've ever read a thriller and just wondered how the author manages to make your heart race just by describing an everyday, mundane setting, well, you are absolutely in the right place. We're breaking down a brilliant psychological narrative, exploring how this suffocating, dramatic atmosphere impacts us as readers, and we'll analyze the intricate and frankly super intense character dynamics that drive our protagonist, Catalia, right to the edge.
Okay, so let's dive right into this brutal opening philosophy from the author. It completely frames humanity not as, regular people, but as cynical, hungry predators. What's wild here is that the author doesn't rely on ghosts or supernatural monsters to creep you out. No, the terror comes entirely from humans. Everyday people are described as these predators who consume without tasting, having sharp voices and claws that break the unbreakable. It is a shockingly harsh vocabulary, but it instantly dunks the reader into this deeply cynical, completely hostile environment.
And this chilling perspective leads us to ask a really important question. How exactly do past traumas force a protagonist like Catalia to view her everyday world as a dangerous, claustrophobic jungle? You see, the author's intense vocabulary isn't just there for shock value. It actually places us directly inside Catalia's mind. Think about it. When your past is entirely defined by manipulation and abuse, you don't just see colleagues or random strangers on the street anymore. You see potential threats. You see the whole world through a lens of pure survival. Section 1. Monsters in Human Form.
So to really understand how the author turns ordinary society into a literal horror show for our protagonist, we've got to look at this idea of scarcity and deficiency. The text explicitly outlines a philosophy where people behave like predators, literally feeding on the weaknesses of others. It's a total psychological battleground. The author uses this to explain why Catalia feels like she's constantly being hunted. When society is framed as this zero-sum game full of emotional vampires, the suffocating pressure Catalia is under just hits you like a ton of bricks.
And this is where we see the author's specific literary choices shine. Using this incredibly harsh, aggressive vocabulary makes the reader feel like Catalia is surrounded by actual physical threats. Words like claws, acidic traits, and gazes that break wings. This is exactly how the author masterfully weaponizes fear. By using visceral, almost monstrous physical descriptions for completely normal human behavior, the dramatic atmosphere becomes incredibly dense. You aren't just casually reading a drama anymore. You are experiencing a survival thriller right alongside her.
Section 2. The Father's Dark Shadow.
Now, to really grasp Catalia's current panic, we have to trace it back to the root of her trauma, this impossible choice she has to make. On one hand, she has the suffocating safety of a very controlling, wealthy father. Returning to him means total safety from her stalker ex, sure, but it also means stepping back into what she calls a dirty world full of pitch darkness. Basically, a life of absolute submission. On the other hand, she has her independence. Working as a photographer gives her freedom, but it leaves her completely exposed and vulnerable. This tension is the engine driving the entire narrative. Every single mistake she makes at work threatens to send her right back into her father's golden cage. And we see the true traumatic cost of her independence. When her abusive ex ruins her magazine photo shoot, he literally puts her lead model in the hospital. Suddenly, the magazine gives her a strict 72-hour deadline to find a replacement model or she's fired. If she's fired, she loses her independence. And if she loses her independence, her father wins. So the psychological stakes here, they are absolutely astronomical. Section 3. Rosaline, the Impenetrable Shield. But thankfully, Catalia isn't entirely alone in this mess. If we shift our perspective and look at the world through her best friend Rosalind's pragmatic eyes, we uncover the secret behind her relentless support. Rosalind sees Catalia's immense talent, which is just buried under all this crippling trauma. Driven by a fierce protective instinct, Rosalind steps in to be the psychological shield, the armor that Catalia desperately lacks. Where Catalia freezes up and just expects the absolute worst, Rosalind is proactive, energetic, and aggressively optimistic. Together, they form this perfectly balanced psychological ecosystem. Honestly, without Rosalind's step-by-step intervention to save Catalia's job, Catalia's impulsive nature would probably lead to a total meltdown. Rosalind is out there literally leaving her own work early just to hunt down physical envelopes full of new model candidates for her friend. She forces Catalia to eat, to plan, to keep moving. But here's the fascinating psychological twist. Rosalind's unwavering support actually gives Catalia the hidden courage to make some incredibly reckless decisions later on. Just knowing she has someone in her corner makes Catalia desperate enough to try literally anything to maintain her independent life.
Section 4. The Architecture of Terror. Alright, so now we see where all this psychological groundwork violently collides with reality. The author forces us right into Catalia's traumatized mind, using the physical environment to make the abstract concept of pure terror feel so incredibly visceral. Imagine this. Catalia is just trying to go home. She steps out of the elevator, and boom, she hears his voice. Her stalker ex is right there in her building, chatting with a neighbor. The way the author writes the scene is an absolute masterclass in tension. The physical space seems to shrink. The air just disappears from the room. As a reader, you are trapped right alongside her. Let's just walk through these agonizing seconds. Second 1, she hears that hated voice. Second 3, her legs go numb and she drops her shopping bags. The sound alerts him. Time slows down to an excruciating crawl. The author describes the elevator doors closing as if electricity is barely reaching them, while he slowly turns his head, like a lion locking onto its prey. This brilliant manipulation of time completely immerses you, the reader, into a state of sheer, unadulterated panic. Your own heart races just reading it. And by anchoring the scene in these highly specific, uncontrollable bodily reactions, the author ensures you physically feel the crippling weight of Catalia's terror. Notice how she doesn't just say Catalia was scared. No, she describes the tongue becoming heavy, threatening to choke her, the audible grinding of teeth, a sudden loss of breath. This intense somatic description is exactly how the dramatic atmosphere bleeds right off the page and infects your own nervous system. Section 5. The Unknown Final Call. So this intense fear we've been talking about, it drives Catalia to make a completely reckless professional decision. Running on pure adrenaline and terror, she flees her building and happens to witness a massive brawl outside a barbershop. She sees this delinquent barber named Daniel beating someone up and getting arrested by the cops, but he has the perfect, rugged, dangerous look for her magazine cover. She is so desperate to save her career, so terrified of being forced back to her father or found by her ex, that she literally approaches the police car. She offers to bail this violent stranger out of jail just to be her model. It's totally irrational, but given the psychological pressure cooker she's in, it makes perfect, terrifying sense. So she gets back to her apartment thinking she's finally solved her work crisis. She secured her independence. She's practically euphoric, right? But just as she exhales, her phone rings from an unknown number. She answers and hears only breathing, followed by the words, "I missed you to the point of madness." It is a bone-chilling call that completely shatters her brief moment of relief, leaving us all to wonder, whose darkness has finally caught up with her? Is it the stalker ex who found her building? Is it her father? Is it some new threat entirely? Really makes you wonder. How far will the shadows of our past go to pull us back into the dark? Think about that the next time you pick up a call from an unknown number.